Good afternoon, guys. We are back with our Nonprofit Connect for Giving Tuesday. And today I have with me Harry from the Daniel Pitino Shelter.
That would be me.
That would be you.
Yes,
And you're also
ma'am.
over St. Benedict's, and that's almost what I said, but that's coming up next.
True.
So
Yes, I wear many hats.
yes. So let's tell the people a little bit about what the Daniel Pitino Shelter is and kind of what they do. I'm sure everybody's kind of heard of it,
Sure.
but let's kind of give them a better idea of what really goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think, I think a lot of people just perceive us as a family shelter here in Owensboro, but we're actually a lot more than that. The Daniel Pitino Shelter is a shelter, but we also house single women, single fathers, single mothers, just not single men. And we are a 24-hour facility. We're the largest and only family shelter west of Louisville, all the way to Paducah. So that's a very interesting fact. We're also the only 7-day-a-week soup kitchen. So
I was reading about that.
most people a lot of people that are food insecure but not homeless come to our facility just to get a hot meal.
Yeah.
And then we're also the white flag facility during the winter. So when shelters are at capacity, we open our doors to take more individuals in. And so we touch a whole lot of the city.
Yeah.
In retrospect.
Right, you touch a whole lot. And I was reading on there that you also have like family units. So if you have a family, you don't necessarily have to stay at the shelter. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no. So all of our shelter is individualized rooms. So if a family does stay with us, they actually have a key to their room. So nobody can get in that room.
Okay.
And it's just them and their family. We don't intermingle families, and we do that for a lot of different reasons, mainly because people need privacy, especially with a family and with children, but also, we want them to feel sound in their own space.
Yeah.
Now, if an individual needs more time than what our facility will allow, which is about a year and a half, then yes, they can move behind our facility in one of our single family transitional homes or across the street in the Nikki Hayden apartments, which are single bedroom apartments.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any kind of like parameters, kind of stipulations that they have to do to stay in those?
Yes. So a lot of our properties have been funded by KHC and with some HUD funding, which is federal funds. And so, yes, 2 of our homes, they have to be 60% of the AMI, which is the average medium income in the area, and the other 2 they have to be at least 40% of the average median income.
Okay.
And so it's the same way with the apartments across the street.
Okay.
We have 4 apartments that are 60, 4 of them that are 40, and then 4 of them that have no income restrictions on them, but they are income based on the rent. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. So you said, was it up to 2 years, a year?
Yeah, everybody's situation is different.
Absolutely.
So somebody's barriers for a single person may not be as complicated or complex as somebody that has a family, right? So we are open to that, and we do know. So yes, we allow that room, and it may be a year and a half. About a year is our average stay.
Okay. Okay. So I know y'all are a white flag place to go with all these cool nights coming up. What do those days kind of look like?
Chaos.
Chaos.
Yes. What White Flag is designed to do is really save a life when shelters are at capacity. And so, but also we don't, we may have 30 people in White Flag tonight. Probably 10 of those individuals are not even homeless. They just have, they just don't have adequate heat, or they don't have utilities at the moment, or running water. And so they'll come stay with us to stay warm.
Right.
But yes, it's chaotic, people coming and going all through the night, because we don't have a specific curfew or a time period. Police bringing people in that they may encounter on the streets. And it's really just that, to give them a cot and a warm place so that we know that they're not subjecting themselves to dangerous weather.
Right. Because I'm sure you have a huge turnout whenever those nights come up.
Yeah, we do. Anywhere from 20 to 40 people a night in White Flag.
Yeah, and that's a lot of people that you're not ready to immediately house, but I guess you kind of prepare for it now.
Yeah, I mean, well, and you may get into this later, the biggest thing is we've got people ready to be housed, but there is no housing available for them to move forward to,
Yeah.
you know?
So what does that kind of look like? I mean, do they just stay in the shelter or or can they while there's nothing available?
Absolutely. So it's typically what determines their length of stay is how long it takes for them to find an apartment or a house that can fit their financial budget. The average rent of a one-bedroom apartment around Owensboro now is like $750 a month.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy because the average disability check a person's getting is like $744 a month.
I seen your post on that.
I mean, how do you live?
You can't make it.
Your rent's more than what your check is.
Mhm.
That's right. So there's only certain units that they have to wait for.
Yeah.
And those units have anywhere from a year to 2 years wait list.
That's
It's
perfect.
insane.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, y'all are also the only food kitchen that's 365 days a year. Do y'all have a lot of people that, kind of like, I don't know, like host days where they can come in and like donate all the food for that meal, or is that a thing? Could it be?
It could be. Yeah, it could be. Mainly every day we have kitchen staff that are paid, they're part-time. And they'll do, we always have like a light breakfast that's open to the public. And then we do lunch at 11 o'clock, except for on Sundays, it's at 2. And it's fixed by our staff. On the weekends, we have a church group that does Saturday and Sunday lunch. But in the evenings, 5 to 5:30 is dinner. Those are actually fixed by the clients. So they rotate like 1 week at a time. They'll be in the kitchen and it'd be their chore is to cook for everybody all week, and they love it. They really do, and they have some really good food. I mean, sometimes I have to stay to get a bite to eat because you just don't know what they're about to fix. So they eat very, very good. But yes, we encourage groups to come out, and we'd love to have them served.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Obviously, financial donations are huge, but volunteer time-wise, how can people be useful that way?
Sure. First, I would just encourage people, if you're interested in what we do or you have a passion to help those that are down on their luck, is come in first. Come in and let me give you a tour of the facility. Because what that does is that brings you into our world. You get to see, hear, smell, feel everything. And then you have an emotional buy-in to it. But yes, we have volunteers that help in the kitchen with lunch. We have volunteers that help in the thrift store, in the clothing closet. We have volunteers that help with front desk, check-in and get them hygiene products and things that they need. We have group projects for a lot of groups. We get a lot of school groups, a lot of church groups. And typically we'll save like some of our projects like landscaping or putting mulch down. We'll save it for a group.
Yeah.
So volunteering's real easy. If you decide that's what you want to do, you can kind of notify us online. There's a place online to apply, or like I said, come in, let me give you a tour. It's the best way.
Yeah, that's amazing. You mentioned thrift store in your clothing closet. Can you touch on a little bit on that? Do y'all have something set up for your clients to have access to while they're there?
Yep. So what we do, and we're about ready to go to an incentivized life skills, but right now we do vouchers for anybody that's homeless. They can come in and we'll give them a voucher to go in and get like 7 different items. And so they can go in the thrift store and actually shop. This idea came with one of our shelter partners in Evansville. The Evansville Rescue Mission said, just get your thrift store going. Because we were having issues with donation management, overflow. I mean, it was a lot. And they said, look, just open a thrift store in front of your shelter. That's what we did. And now they're years into it, and it helps fund their budget. So that's kind of the other side to it, is it helps us, condense our donations and kind of filter through those pretty quick. But also it gives those that are homeless a shopping opportunity as well.
Just to make them feel normal again. Just a little sense of normalcy. I've volunteered at Borrowed Hearts, and they have that same kind of thrift store set up, and that's just amazing. Like, you don't realize, you take for granted the normalcy feelings until you're stripped of it. And so that's awesome that y'all are.
It's totally different when I mean, that's what I tell my kids. Can we have McDonald's? I said, do you realize there are kids that are 12 and 13 years old that have never ate McDonald's in their life? What? I'm like, yeah, man. they just grow, they're, some of them grow up and I was one of those. I grew up very, very poor. And so, there's a lot of things I didn't have as a kid. And then we all take those things for granted, I think. And so you're right. Just being able to give them an opportunity to feel normal, to take pride in going in and picking something out for themselves.
Yes.
And it not being something that, okay, this is all we got for you, put it on.
Right. And it's not something they would ever be caught in wearing, like it's not something they're comfortable in.
Sure.
So yeah, that's amazing. So how did you get wrapped up in all of this?
Well,
Is that a story you want to tell?
I always want to tell it because it's the only story for real. 13 years ago, I came to Owensboro looking for a new way of life. Had been homeless since I was 16 years old. I was 29. I was tired of running. I was just done. I felt like I'd spent my whole life trying to die. And I was at a place where I really wanted to try to live. And so I came to get sober, and I did that. And I became part of the recovery community here. And just volunteered down at the shelter, and I fell in love. I was in denial about my homelessness until that first day I walked in that shelter. And I guess the reason I was in denial is because I just looked at it as like, I'm living my best life and I'm partying it up, but deep down I was miserable. And but I didn't see that side until I met the guys at St. Benedict's, and really it was like, wow, that's me. Like I'm them, they're me. This is where I'm supposed to be at. And so everything in my life from that moment on has been about those that are homeless and me trying to, not forget where I came from and elevate people that otherwise are not elevated. And so, yeah, it molded the next 8 years of my education too. So it's been a huge blessing.
Yeah. And you going into that, I mean, it's changed a lot of lives that you've been able to touch. And usually, well, I think anyways, people that had, rougher past, they don't take those things for granted anymore. They can see the good and the bad, and they know what they want to put out into the world. They want to put the goodness into the world because they know what they experience.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome that, you had the past that you did and you're using it to help change other people's lives. That's amazing.
I try. And like I tell everybody whenever I go somewhere and I speak or whatever, they'll say, hey, he's director. And I said, no, I get the privilege of being a director of the shelter, that these guys and these men and women trust me enough to keep the lights on, keep the heat on, provide them a safe place. And to me, I take that very serious and personal. I don't take it for granted.
Same way.
I was giving my lead not long ago over to ARC, and the girl come up to me afterwards. She's like, I appreciate your sermon. And I said, well, it wasn't a sermon, but okay, but it was, because I talked about God. I mean, God's been a big factor for me, but he's also both of those shelters that I'm a part of are ministry. So, God's a big part of those, and he's in the center of it. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So we've touched on everything. Is there, well, not everything, obviously, but is there something that you want people to know about the Pitino Shelter that maybe they don't already know?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Natalie, and I appreciate you pointing this out. In the last 2 years that I've been there, I think one of the hardest battles that I have is keeping that building operating, because we had to have at least 15,000 a week coming in those doors.
That's a lot of people.
And in donations,
Oh,
in
okay.
money. Like
Oh,
we had to
okay,
have
gotcha.
$15,000 a week
A week.
to operate that building. Yes.
It'd
And
be easier to get 15,000 people in there.
I know it's very, very hard. I think there's a misconception that because we're the Daniel Pitino Shelter, that Rick Pitino funds our facility, and he doesn't. He hasn't gave since 2011. I think the other misconception is when you look at our 990, which is public, it shows we get a lot of government support. Last year I'll say it was like 1.5 million. Only 4% of that I can use to operate that building. The other 96% has to go into the client. So that money actually went to pay people's rent and utilities, their arrearages and utilities, arrearages and rents, new deposits for new housing, and their first month's rent. It goes into either one, preventing homelessness or helping them out of homelessness. And so the public just sees that money, and I think they think, well, they got plenty of money. No, In order for me to even draw that 1.5 million, I have to have 1.5 million.
Yeah.
Because I have to spend it in order to get it back. And so I think that's a big misconception. So one thing I just tell the public is, we've been here for 30 years, and it's not been because of government funding. And it's not been because of the Pitino family. It's been because of you, the community. And if the community is not standing behind us, and supporting us, we couldn't exist.
Yeah.
And every day that not existing gets closer to a reality as money draws up, as our cities, it is the size that it is, and we've got over 650 something nonprofits in it, and so we're all pulling for the same dollars.
Yeah.
But that would be the one thing. And the other thing would be, you don't know if you're going to need our facility one day or not.
We're really all one emergency away from the same fate. So
Fact.
I mean, that's the life we live in now.
I've had a dentist in our shelter before, and he'd come to me and secretly disclose that and ask me not to share it with nobody. And when I dug into it, his mom had dementia. He was a caregiver for her. And one day she woke up and accused him of being a stranger, called the cops. The cops put a protective order on him. And he's like, no, she has dementia. He says, that's a court issue. You got to take it up in court. And literally, overnight, the guy became homeless, all because his mom was sick. It took several months for them to get that sorted out in court. And when they did, he finally was able to go back home to his mom. And I think at that point, he knew he had to put her in a nursing facility. But it just goes to show that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can be making the best money, but something can happen that puts you in that position.
And I'll be gone tomorrow.
That's right.
I'll be gone tomorrow. Well, I think it's amazing what you're doing, and I hope that we have quite a few, at least volunteers come out, hopefully some financial help.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming in and sharing the word with me. I'm glad that I learned some stuff. I learned quite a bit about the shelter that I didn't know. So
I appreciate you having me, Natalie. I mean, it is Giving Tuesday, so, give.
Yes, please.
Yeah, please. And that's the other thing. I mean, you can go online and give to us.
Yes, how can they donate? I didn't think that.
PitinoShelter.org. Real simple. Big donate button. Click it. Or you can go at Daniel Pitino Shelter on Venmo and PayPal.
Okay.
We made it real easy. They can give that way. They can mail a check to 501 Walnut Street, Owensboro, Kentucky, 42301. Either way, we would try to make giving very easy and painless. Yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, all right. Is there anything else you got for me?
No, I appreciate it, Natalie. It's a good day to be inside in this wonderful studio.
Yes, it's nice and warm in here. Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank y'all for what you're doing. It means a lot. Anytime there's awareness out there, it helps.
Yes.
So.
Just, you never know what may spark an interest in somebody or pull at somebody's heartstrings, and
Yeah, right.
so that's amazing.
Well, thank you
Yes.
so much.
Thank you, and we will be back shortly with St. Benedict's, actually.